So this is the guide for the proportions quiz coming up in 7th grade. Remember, a proportion is simply a fancy way of saying two fractions that are equal, or two ratios or rates that are equal, but a ratio and a rate is itself a fraction usually anyway. So whenever you hear the word solving for proportions or set up a proportion or do this with a proportion, all it means is look for two fractions that you can make out of the problem, look for two numbers that you can put as a comparison, and then work with that setup there. Now, the main way of solving proportions is cross multiplying. So um, remember, cross multiplying is when you take the top times the bottom, then the top times the bottom, and then usually ends up division as the second step as well. And that's how we're going to solve most of these here. Now, there are shortcuts, and I'll try to pick out a few here and there. But for the most part, cross multiplying is the method that I've seen a lot of people use. So in this case here, cross multiplying means take the top times the bottom. So x times 12 is 12x. And then take the top times the bottom. 6 times 4 is 24, and you keep the equal sign between them. And then how do I solve for this? Well, it's 12 times x, and I want to get rid of the 12, so I divide by 12. And you get 2 is equal to x. Okay. One thing you could also do is know that how the fractions relate to each other. So to get from 12 to 4, I divide by 3, right? 12 divided by 3 is 4. So that means on top I have to do the same thing. So 6 divided by 3 would get me 2. But again, cross multiplying is very quick, very easy. So if you want to stick with that method, make sure you get that one down pat. That's fine too. Same thing here. 3 times x is 3x equals negative 2 times 5 is negative 10. Then divide by the 3, and you get x is equal to negative 10 thirds. And there's your answer. Once again, just make sure you carry the negative along with the 2, and you're fine. This is another one. Again, cross multiplying can help you out here too. If you want to try to find a shortcut, you're more than welcome to as well. I'm not sure if there are any off the top of my head here, but cross multiplication, is just as good. So this is 27x, and then negative 21 times negative 9. Remember your sign rules gives you positive 189, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And then, of course, we're going to divide by 27, and we get 7 is equal to x. And now that I got that answer, I can see that there actually was a shortcut here. 27 divided by 3 is 9, so negative 21 divided by 3 would give you 7. Now notice here I didn't alter the signs. I didn't say that this was a negative or a positive 27. I just said 27 and 21. So if you're doing that trick, don't overuse the symbol of the number. So just be careful with that. So if you're ever wondering about how the negatives play out, it might be best just to do cross multiplication. Just make sure you don't psych yourself out on whether the number is actually negative or positive. Last one here, 5 times x is 5x. 2 times 13 is 26. Divided by 5. So again, this usually comes in 3 steps. Multiply, multiply, and then divide. So if you can get that pattern down, then you're good. So then this is going to be 5.2. Whoops, 5.2 is equal to x. So again, cross multiplication works in all these cases. It's a very easy procedure to do. Just make sure you're careful with your signs and all that, and you should be okay. The next ones involve making your own proportion and solving it, given a word problem. So how many points does Tom need to earn on a 30-point math test to earn an 86%? Well, even though it doesn't look like there's a proportion here, this 86%, remember, is actually a proportion in and of itself, or a ratio in and of itself. 86% means 86 out of 100. That's what an 86% is. And I want Tom's score to be equal to that ratio. I want his score, the points he earned, out of the points that he could have, to be equal to 86 out of 100. So there's 30 points he could get. So basically this is saying I want to know how many points does he need to get on a 30-point test to be the same as if he got 86 points right on a 100-point test. So the totals both go on bottom, 100 on bottom here, 30 on bottom here. I don't know how many points he needs to get to equal out to be an 86 over 100, so I'm going to put an x there, and then we're back into the cross multiplication zone again. So take x times here, take 86 times that. X times 100 is 100x. And then we get 86 times 30. Again, just making sure you remember your signs, but they're both positive here, so it doesn't matter. We get 2,580. And then we divide by 100. And we get x is equal to 25 So he needs to get 25.8 points out of 30 to get an 86% on his test. So percentages are their own ratios. You can make them into a ratio very easily by simply putting the number over 100, and that will give you half your proportion. Because remember, a proportion is two fractions that are equal. So the percent gives you one fraction, and then this part gives you the other fraction, where you have that missing piece you need to solve for. Again, another word problem here dealing with baking. So 3 cups of milk and 2 sticks of butter is what the recipe calls for. Tim's going to use 5 sticks of butter. How much milk should he use? Well, let's get this set up as a ratio first. 3 cups of milk, so 3 cups of milk goes with 2 sticks of butter. I want to know if he uses 5 sticks of butter, how much milk he has. So I don't know how much milk he's going to need, but I know he's going to use 5 sticks of butter. So I want this ratio to be equal to this one. I want this ratio to be the same as this one, just using more. So I'm going to cross multiply. So I get 2x is equal to 15. Then you divide by 2, and you get x is equal to 7.5. So that's how much milk he has to use, 7.5 cups of milk, to get the ratios to be still equivalent and equal. So again, set up your own ratio first, set up your second ratio with the missing piece in it, and then cross multiply and solve. There will always be one ratio given to you. There's always going to be one ratio or one fraction you can set up right away, and then one fraction with the missing piece in it. Same for number 7. Advertises a 30 to 20 teacher to student ratio. So that means 3 teachers per 20 students. So the school has 10 teachers right now. We want to know how many students could they make, or how many students could they get in order to keep this ratio consistent. That way they don't have a different ratio than what they're advertising. So let me erase this a little bit and make it a little bit better because I didn't like the way that looks. So we have 10 teachers right now. I want to know how many students could we handle to keep this ratio the same. Once again, cross multiplication can work well here. So this is going to be 200 is equal to 3x divided by 3. And we're going to have to round it a little bit here, but that's okay. So we're going to have 200 divided by 3, which gives us 66.6 repeating. So they can hire about, or they can accept about 66 students. If they go higher than 66, then this ratio is lower than what they're actually advertising, which usually isn't good. Usually you want your ratio to be as accurate as possible, if not a little bit overestimate. So that's why we're going to round down a little bit to 66. So again, look for the ratio that's given to you, and then look for the one that's missing a piece, and then cross multiply once you have them set up. Just make sure your symbols are aligned. So teachers on top, students on bottom, teacher on top, student on bottom, milk on top, butter on bottom, milk on top, butter on bottom. So make sure that they're always set up consistently. And the last part here is kind of an oddball one, but deals with the slope. So the slope is kind of the ratio of a line. The slope is the ratio of the vertical movement to the horizontal movement from 2 points on a line. That's the mathy definition of it. The slope is the ratio of the vertical movement to the horizontal movement as you go across the line. Another way of writing it, and a little bit easier way of saying it, is simply the ratio of the rise to the run. That's what the slope is in layman's terms, is how far up you go versus how far over you go between any 2 points on the line. Now the trick is that you can pick any 2 points on the line you want. Doesn't matter which 2 you pick as long as they're on the line. Now I would not recommend picking like this as a point because I don't know exactly where this is. This could be like 0.5 or 0.6 or 0.7, and then upwards it could be like 0.4 or 0.3. So you want to pick points you know for sure are on the graph and you know the exact coordinates of. So in this case, I would pick, say, this point right here. I know exactly where that is. That's 0, 1. And this point right here, that's exactly 2, negative 2. So now I want to count the rise and run to go from here to here. Well, the rise is 1, 2, 3. So the rise is 3 up, and the run is 1, 2. Now it's going to the left. That's actually a negative run. So remember, left is negative, down is negative, up is positive, right is positive. So 3 up is a positive 3. 1, 2 left is a negative 2. So my ratio is 3 over negative 2, or the slope is negative 3/2. That's the ratio or the slope of the line. Rise over run. So it's kind of an oddball one to have in here, but because it's kind of described as the ratio of a line, we put it in the ratios and rates section as well. But all it is look at your line, pick 2 points, count how far up and over you have to go to get from one point to the other one, and then write that as a fraction. So the up number goes on top, and the left and right number goes on bottom. You could also go down as well. I could have done down and over, and I get the same answer. So I could go down 3 and right 2, which would be -3/2, which is still -3/2. So it doesn't really matter which direction you go, whether you go up and over or down and over. As long as you get your symbols and your numbers right, you should be okay. So that wraps us up for this one. Again, make sure you remember how to cross multiply, because that will serve you for pretty much all these problems here. And make sure you are on the lookout for what ratios are given to you already in those word problems. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day.